As I look back on the beginning days of my journey, you can well imagine that my road has not been smooth. I couldn't pull over and stop when faced with the challenges. I just put my seatbelt on a little tighter, adjusted my rear view mirror, put my life in drive, and went for it.
Along in my automobile, my baby beside me at the wheel.
Tribute dinner in her honor. Irma was an automobile industry icon who broke through the glass ceiling. Translation, she totally rocks.
Mark, and Irma was my dear friend, but she was also everybody's dear friend. And every time you were with her, she made you feel that you were the only friend she ever had. It was so wonderful being with Irma. She was absolutely a fantastic human being, and what a businesswoman.
Irma was born in Mexico in the 30s, and as a young girl she emigrated to Miami, Florida, and later on married Jim Elder. She became a very successful woman in her own right before she even married Jim, and learned about the business from a wonderful friend of hers that she knew in Miami. And when she met Jim, he was it, and that was it, and they got married and moved here to Michigan.
When she married Jim Elder, her mother told her that a wife followed her husband no matter where he went. And for Irma, that meant following Jim to Detroit. He was the general manager of a car dealership, and together they made a pact to save enough money to eventually buy their own dealership.
And she didn't really know very much when her husband died, and she had to take over the business. But she just went in and did everything she possibly could and learned about everything. And look what happened. She became the #1 woman dealer for Ford in all of America. Now that's quite a feat.
In 1967, with the support and guidance of Ford Motor Company, the Elders bought the Troy Ford dealership. Irma was a housewife and the mother of Tony, Robert, and Stephanie when their dreams were shattered with Jim's sudden death.
When Jim became so ill and passed away, Irma just dug in her heels and decided she's not going to let that dealership go. She wanted it for her children. And her children were the most important people in the world to her. She had tremendous love for her family. And so it was most important for her to retain the ownership for her children.
She's a brand new widow. She and her husband had a dealership. She kept that business and she grew that business, and now she has an empire of 11 different dealerships.
She built a business like no one else did. And as a woman, she succeeded in everything she ever attempted to do. And I spent many a days with her before she bought many of her dealerships. And she made the decision and then made the phone call while I was sitting.
I loved Irma, but the most important thing that I loved about her is the way she felt about her children. Her children were #1. She always had something wonderful to say about her children and always was telling stories. And they loved her, and she loved them. And she was #1, Irma Elder, #2, mother, #3, business.
Her, I fell in love with this little woman that had just, you don't look at her size, but she's just full of life and a lot of fun, and just so caring and so kind. And we started just getting together, and she always was so sweet, and I felt honored. She always used to say that she had one daughter, but if she would have another daughter, I would be the second daughter. Kind. And I really very much admired her courage after everything she went through, and how she just came into the business and became a woman that we all looked up to and just admired her courage and her strength and her business abilities.
When I first met Irma in the mid-'80s, my children were young, and she became a great friend to all of us, my husband and the 2 kids. Over the years, we became very tight friends. She became part of our family, and when she stopped by in the morning to have a cup of coffee, she loved to have a Syrian coffee and then turn the cups over and for me to read her cup. And of course, I embellished. Where would I know how to read a cup? But it worked out very well. We had many laughs, and 50% of the things I told her came true.
Irma possessed a sharp wit and a keen eye for business. She had all the guts and determination it took to be a successful automotive dealer, eventually becoming president and CEO of the Elder Automotive Group.
R-E-S-P-E-C-T, find out what it means to me. R-E-S-P-E-C-T, take F-T-C-T. Sock it to me, sock it to me, sock it to me, Zary, say.
I met Irma and she met me. It was like an immediate bond, and we became very good friends and confidants over the years. I worked on her public relations because she was the first woman auto dealer, first Ford woman auto dealer in Michigan, and was a standard there for women who were getting back into the workforce. We did many, many things, and there were many times that she was happy, she was frustrated, she was interested, she was dynamic, she was kind, we spoke all the time. We opened new stores together, new stores, personal dealerships, some were Ford dealerships, to the Jaguar dealerships. Aston Martin, she was expanding to Florida. There was always something that was on the horizon for her. And she would think about it, and she would really study everything. She always talked about coming home those first nights at the dealership, taking every single report home and laying them out on the floor of her family room, and she'd study it. She'd study the numbers. And she talked about, all the time, she talked about her 3 precious children. Just like I have 3 precious children. Either we had horror stories or we had wonderful stories, but we talked about our children a lot. And she talked about the time that she was going to take over the dealership. And her son told her, look, if you decide to sell it, when I get old enough and I have enough money, I'm going to go back and buy it for us again. And her daughter said, Mom, you have to do this. You have to keep going. And that's how the children are today. I know that they've circled around